The scandals in the Obama administration. They're starting to pile up like garbage outside of the Iowa State Fair. Today, Will Rogers is in-house along with Tom Coates. We'll unpack this live here on The View from a Pew.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
11th day of June in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Good afternoon. This is live on View from the Pew on webcast1live.com and 99.3 KTIA. Of course, my co-host on Tuesday, the incredible Tom Coates, and our special guest today is Polk chairperson of the Polk County Republicans, Mr. Will Rogers.
Woo, yeah!
And the crowd goes wild. How are you, buddy?
Thanks for having me on, Mac. I appreciate being here again.
You know, and we'll talk some local stuff. I want to know about, the the Senate seat that's open because Harkin's running away.
That's great.
And who the players are so far. I heard a new name today. He's a talk show host from Sioux City.
I heard some stuff about him, Mac. I don't know him. I mean, from our perspective, I guess he's kind of an unknown, but a retired military colonel.
Yeah.
Very well-spoken, articulate, strong conservative. I heard a fellow one of my counselors just telling me today that he'd heard him speak and was very impressed with him. So he won't have a name recognition, but be an interesting piece to the primary puzzle, I think.
Yeah, in the primaries. So I want to talk a little bit about that, but I need some, what do I need? I need some common sense, which I don't get from Tom.
That's right.
Because he's so far right wing. Him and Rush sit on the same,
That's right.
platform. I just want to understand what's going on in all these scandals. And is this just the conservatives piling on the president after he gets elected for the second and last time? Or are these really the real deal? Are we looking at Watergate all over again? Are we looking at an administration that is so greatly flawed that we should consider ceasing it as our administration?
Well, Mac, I think that really what you're going to see here is today, and hopefully the discussion, we don't just drill down into the minutia of all these different scandals that we talk about right now. But what it really goes to illustrate is that there's a great level of incompetence in this president's administration. And what he did is he surrounded himself with people that were just really not capable of doing the job or doing the job properly. Looking at Benghazi, which has been going on since last year.
September 11th.
Since September 11th of last year. It wasn't even, Benghazi was a result of the president and his administration's policy. They weren't paying attention to the embassies. They weren't paying attention to the war on terror. They weren't paying attention to Al-Qaeda. And then subsequently, that's what occurred in Benghazi. We saw that the president had come out and declared the war on terror over, and subsequently people within his own administration were pushing him to go in this direction, not just for election purposes, but to try to move on from it, to make something more of his next 4 years in office. And subsequently, Benghazi is what occurred as a result of that.
Now, you almost make it sound like, now he's been likened to Nixon in some aspects of, trying to cover up these things. But I get the sense that you might think maybe a better analogy might be with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter came in, and remember, he surrounded himself with a bunch of rubes from Georgia that were way out of their element, and the incompetency ensued. Are you saying that it might be similar to that?
I'd say it's both, actually.
Okay.
I would say that you have a president who's extremely insulated, that has only a small group of people that he's dealing with, And then beyond that, the people that he is chosen to go out and then identify people in leadership within his administration are just not are capable of performing.
Will Rogers is our guest today. Tom Coates in the house. I'm J. Michael McCoy. I've heard this theory, and I've heard it for years, that when a Democrat wins the White House, there is a Democratic machine that you don't see that really runs the country. Same as with a Republican. When Bush won the White House, there was who outside this room thought Dick Cheney had no power? Dick Cheney had a lot of power. And that there's this machine that is really moving, for instance, healthcare reform and gay marriage. And it's just the president that kind of gets credit for it or gets the blame when something like Benghazi comes up. I mean, are we to believe that the incompetency of the president and his cabinet run several links down, degrees down, like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
If you took if you take a particular individual, just picked someone out of the administration and you looked at him and said, okay, is this person a bright individual? I mean, are they capable in terms of performing in other jobs? You'd probably say yes, but what ends up happening is you put them all together and you give them a lack of leadership, and their performance level disintegrates. And that's why you have so many scandals right now occurring. I mean, that's, some of it's just leaks. And again, that goes to reflect upon the president's administration.
Well, is there lack of competency also displayed? Like last Friday, he went to deliver a speech. And, I mean, he has tremendous amount of backup support, and yet he didn't get his speech. And he was stumbling and stuttering around. I don't know if you heard the audio
What
clip.
was the deal?
He didn't have his speech, and
Where
without
was he?
this, he was talking to a group, and I don't know what group it was, but without the speech, and he's had the teleprompter, but without the speech, he was lost. Now, somebody likened it to a situation that happened once upon a time to Bill Clinton in a similar situation, but Bill Clinton had looked at his speech ahead of time and had such a great memory retention, he was able to deliver it extemporaneously off the cuff. Well, without the prepared text, they're afraid to let Barack Obama go extemporaneously off the cuff, because I think the few times we've glimpsed the unvarnished, the real Barack Obama, the public doesn't take to it. And so he and his handlers are all afraid to let him go off the cuff. And yet here he had a speaking engagement. Press was there. No, and I don't know if anybody's held accountable for that. I can't imagine that he really wanted those 4 people to be killed in Benghazi, but he definitely didn't want it to come out as a campaign issue in the heat of his campaign. And so to cover it up, to deny the rescue mission, which would have blown it up into a bigger military operation, to head out early that next morning to a fundraiser in Las Vegas, I mean, those things are his fault, and the buck should stop there. And yet we have been denied the real information, Will, from the get-go. We got these bogus talking points for 8 days out of the gal that now he's going to have a top security advisor. What's her name?
Rice.
And he said in the debates when Romney tried to get after him, he said, I immediately said it was a terrorist attack, which was a lie. And we had Candy Crowley back up the lie, which put the air out of the steam that was coming into his campaign at that point. He had a lot of mo after that first debate. Went into the second debate with Candy Crowley, and she stepped up and covered for the lie that the President of the United States told about him laying claim to a terrorist attack the very next day.
I'll just put it this way. I mean, I think the Romney camp showed some level of incompetency there in allowing Candy Crowley to moderate a debate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree with that.
What do you do if you're the candidate, though, and you got the moderator that backs up a lie by the President of the United States, which you know is a lie? Are you supposed to take them both on then at that point?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you got to, you got to. I mean, but let's back up here. There's the events that occurred due to the level of incompetency, and then there's the lies that go beyond it. Mm-hmm. And that's the other portion that just doesn't sit. Again, things happen that are beyond people's control. There's things that happen as a result of maybe some poor policy decisions. There may be some things that happen as a result of, unforeseen events.
Yeah.
And then the problem is that the administration won't own up to it. Or they try with, for example, with the Verizon cell phone records, now they try to basically say, well, this is a Bush policy.
Well, but it is.
Well,
It is
but
a
the
Bush
initiation was a policy, but Will, the policy then was to focus on foreign transmissions.
Correct.
And they have changed it around to encompassing domestic transmissions, which was not part. Yeah, it started under Bush after 9/11, but it was not ever intended by Bush to be a domestic surveillance program. Am I right?
And that's correct. But my point with that being is the Democrats, and especially this administration, are trying to basically spin the issue to blaming it again on Bush. I mean, you've seen that. I mean, in the media
multiple times.
Now, let me ask a question. Did the Obama administration change something within the Patriot Act which allows them to do it, or did they just abuse the power they have to go farther than the intent?
I would tell you that I don't know that the Patriot Act doesn't disallow or doesn't provide for them to do this.
Okay.
The Patriot Act is very broad legislation that gave the federal government a tremendous amount of power in this area. And it was something that even Republicans objected to at the time that it was passed, and subsequently at multiple times have considered not renewing the legislation because they felt it could be easily abused. And here we have an example of it.
All right. Now, I'm not asking you because I know what you're going to say. I need a sensible answer here from Will.
Sure.
Is what the Obama administration did through the Verizon tapping or whatever you want to call it?
They're not. Go ahead.
Well, they're monitoring my phone calls, right?
They're seeing who you're calling.
All right. They're reading my texts. No? Yes?
No.
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 So they just know who I call and who I don't call.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's legal within the Patriot Act.
Correct.
Okay. I always think about those people who say, well, I don't care if there's speed cameras because I don't speed. You must care because you're a lawbreaker. But this goes beyond simply, I'm upset because they know I called you yesterday and asked you to be on the show.
There's two concerns, I think. Number one is the general idea of privacy, is that no one should have any question as to who you're calling, when you're calling, how you're going about calling. I mean, I think that obviously most of us would like to have a safe and secure world. We're going to want to make sure that terrorists are stopped well before an act of terrorism occurs. And at the same time, we also worry about the federal government using these beyond that for other purposes, for other investigation, for other abuses, for other bullying and revenge to an extent. Because that's really what this
IRS. I mean, that's the IRS thing. And that's why Democrats don't mind Obama doing this. Republicans do. The Democrats in the latest poll out today showed that if Bush were doing this, they'd have all sorts of problems. They assume that Barack Obama is doing it to get at his political foes, their political foes, and therefore they're fine with him doing some of these things that normally many of them would be up in arms about.
And this is what really, at the crux of all of this discussion, how does this really affect President Obama's poll numbers? Meaning his ability to get anything done at the federal level. And maybe it gives him some more difficulties with Congress, but there wasn't a lot that he was going to get done with Congress anyway. But his poll numbers don't shift.
Okay, Will Rogers is my guest. Tom Coates in the house. When we come back, there's another scandal that just broke today. I'm serious. And this is just terrible. But will it make the news? Tom Coates will tell you about that when we come back live here on The View from a Pew on 99.3 KTIA Iowa, powered by WebcastOneLive.com.
Choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
I'm Michael Libby. I'm the host of Insight on Business, the News Hour. We're seen live at 8:45 each Monday morning at Webcast One Live or whenever you want on my blog or on the internet. So what qualifies me to talk about advertising, marketing, and consumer trends? Well, it's my business. Insight Advertising, Marketing, and Communications has helped dozens of companies, small, medium, and large, learn how to use advertising correctly. And we pass that information on to you each and every week.
Well, hi. My name is Mike Ahmed, and I host the show Bridge the Gap Ministry. Our vision is to bridge the gap between cultures. And what we use the Word of God. And because His riches in that Word and the wisdom is what brings us together. So we learn the Word, we speak the Word, and we practice the Word on this show every Thursday. Don't miss it. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
21 minutes after the hour on the 11th day of June in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Hey, just to think about it, this Sunday on Restoring Hope Live, 12 noon on this very radio station, on XM Sirius Channel 131, and across the nation on the AFR Family Radio Network, Bob Montserrat is going to tell his stories about his life as a DMORT technician. And what that means is Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, his real job is he's a forensic scientist. And he is a member of DMORT, and I don't know what that stands for. It's something about a group of forensic scientists go to a disaster and they identify bodies. And so he was at Flight 232 in Sioux City. He was Hurricane Sandy. He was Katrina, and he was at 9/11. And how God impacted him in each one of those times, it's incredible stories. And when you hear what happened to him when he walked into St. Paul's Cathedral, which was just a block from Ground Zero in New York, it'll blow you away. Anyway, that's coming up on Restoring Hope Live this Sunday, 12 noon Central Time. And it is on 131 Sirius XM, the Family Christian station, and the AFR Radio Network, and right here on KTIA as well as WebcastOneLive.com. All right, my guest today is Will Rogers, my co-host, of course, Tom Coates. And before we get to the latest scandal, let's go to the phones because there simply couldn't be a political conversation in Mac's world without having Frank step in. Frank, how are you?
I appreciate the ability to get on and talk. I don't get filibustered like some other programs I try to call.
No, we like you, Frank.
Hey, let me try to nuance this argument a little bit. I was reading Jennifer Flowers' website back in the Bill Clinton days, and she made mention of a program under Altel, a cell phone provider, that the CIA and the NSA was using, that they wanted to collect all the electronic information that went through the country, fax, email, phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. This was before 9/11. I don't want anybody to kid themselves. This stuff is being kept like you keep archives of your show. Now, the nuance to my argument is in this massive of data mining that we're doing, we have to get the enemy, but protect the rights of the law-abiding citizen from being from his secrets being spied upon. Okay?
Yes.
But here's the problem. We have a political administration here that seems to want to go out and they've announced they have an enemies list. Barack Obama got up and said, everybody is carrying my water but Fox News, and you wonder why Eric Holder goes out and singles out a Fox reporter. So, here's the problem. You've got all this information, and all it takes is some crooked administration to use it against their political enemies. I mean, don't kid yourself. This IRS thing wasn't done on behalf of Mitt Romney. Now, there's always this plausible deniability that is built into any presidency where you protect the president, and somebody's going to inevitably fall on the sword for this. But this stuff wasn't done on behest of Mitt Romney. This was he either appointed like-minded people. It was unwritten. It was unsaid. You go out and get your political enemies. I've named who they are. They're conservatives. They're Fox TV viewers. So when the IRS goes out and does this, they're just following an unwritten rule. Now, you're not going to be able to pin this on Obama. And you got guys like James Crowley during the hearings that was running interference for him by saying, well, he wants to point out, well, there's no link to Obama. Well, if there was a link, he wouldn't want to see it anyway.
All right, Frank, I appreciate your input very much. Thanks for being a part of the show. Always enjoy your comments. Frank's never boring. What do you say to that?
Oh, well,
he's absolutely right.
I think it's somewhat rhetorical. I think it's absolutely true. I think it goes back to what we just said. I think the Democrat voters don't mind Obama doing what he's done with the IRS and with the NSA because they assume that he and his people are going to be after the same enemies list as they have. And so they're fine with that. You let a Republican get anywhere close to some of these issues, and they would be raising Cain. And I suppose to some degree the Republicans feel the same way. We would have much more trust if George W. Bush or Mitt Romney were in charge and they were doing these kind of things, because we would assume it wouldn't be as egregious, and if it was being done, it would be after some of the bad guys that we have on our enemies list. And we've got in essence, we've got enemies list just like they do, only it's the antithesis of that. We have the real bad guys on our enemies list, and they've got the good guys on theirs, right? Well,
yeah, right.
Absolutely. We have an administration, like I said. Again, there's the flaws that you have in terms of leadership. If they were just focused on going after terrorists, I think we could give them a pass. I really do.
Absolutely.
But you can't trust this administration not to do otherwise.
Well, let's bring this in-house. Let's make this personal for a minute. You're head of the Polk County Republicans.
Correct.
So you're certainly somewhere on somebody's radar.
Sure.
Okay. Tom, you are a staunch supporter of conservative ideas and candidates. You are openly
good God-fearing American over here.
You're openly quoted in the newspaper and other print, on television. You're on this radio show. I'm on this radio show. If the Obama administration wanted to justify listening in on our conversations for the three of us, he could do that. If he feels we could be enemy combatants, right?
Correct.
If I get on this radio and show, I think we ought to impeach the guy. I didn't like him before. I didn't like him when he ran. I tried to like him as a president, but he's incompetent, and I'm scared for America. If they hear that in the little bouncy room back in Washington where all the creeps sit and listen to people, that's going to bounce up the hall, and something's going to happen to me. I'm going to get, what, audited? My phone number is going to be constantly shut down or have problems. My business is going to get audited. My landlord's going to get a call and say, listen, kick that guy. You know, if the guy who owns EMC is a staunch Democrat, he gets a call from the head of the Democratic Party in the state of Iowa and say, this McCoy guy talks too openly against Obama, and he's in your building. Well, you need to move him on. I mean,
if you
right?
and if you applied for a 501c3 status,
yeah.
You're
Or
not going to
C4.
see that. A C4.
A lot of those were C4s.
That's true.
but-
C4s, they're politically. But if you applied for any other status within the federal, system, all of a sudden you're not going to get that. I mean, they're going to.
And Lois Lerner fast tracks all the liberals, and even the Barack Obama's half brother, who's apparently a scoundrel in real life, not only gets fast tracked, but gets 2-year retroactive approval by the IRS. You want to talk to the IRS? I mean, and that was outside the boundaries of what she could legally do. She couldn't go back more than 18 months. She went back 2 years and gave him retroactive 501c3 status. So, I mean, yeah, you're right, Mac. And does this, that was the intent to some degree to use the IRS and other agencies to put heavy pressure to scare off contributors, to scare off free speech advocates that might be out there writing letters to the editor, calling into talk shows, this and that would have tamped down the enthusiasm for their, and it apparently to some degree worked. So are we going to do anything about it? Are we going to march onto Washington with our pitchforks and our torches and pull the monster out of the White House and take care of business? No, doesn't look like we're going to do that.
I mean, there really isn't anything impeachable here, is there?
I don't believe so.
I mean, look at the Nixon articles of impeachment, guys.
Okay.
Nixon stepped down in 1974 after being reelected in 1972, and the second article of his impeachment listed his attempted use of the IRS against his opponents. That was the second article of his impeachments. So technically, I think if you could dig into it with a special investigator, a special prosecutor like we had under Nixon and some of these had under Clinton, I think we would have enough information that, yes, you could draw up legitimate articles of impeachment. Now, will it be done? No. So, I mean, we can talk about it, but I think we're wasting our time. You're not going to get it done.
I would agree with that, with Tom's point. And here's the thing. First of all, you're never going to see a special prosecutor appointed anywhere by this administration. You're not going to see, I mean, first of all, that Eric Holder is still the Attorney General of the United States of America. It's still laughable. I mean, I think even Democrats that I talk to that are within the legal profession just continue to shake their heads at the fact that this man is the Attorney General and is both incompetent and abused his power as Attorney General. But then furthermore, since President Nixon, everyone has learned somebody's going to fall on their sword at some point during that investigation. It's never going to go to the president. You're never going to see him impeached.
Okay, real quickly before we get to break, we've got about 2 minutes.
All right, let's
read
look
about
at
the latest
one. Guys, you blink and you miss the latest scandal, and neither one of you are up on this latest one. This has to do with dirtying up Hillary Clinton. Hillary's chief of staff quashed State Department scandals. A former senior investigator with the State Department's Criminal Investigation Unit has turned into a whistleblower, and she says that high-ups in the State Department and the ambassador to Belgium were both guilty of areas of investigation, and Mills, who apparently goes way back with Hillary, quashed the investigation. The SID could not continue to investigate and close the case. One of the allegations was that the ambassador to Belgium, a guy named Gutman, a big Democrat donor before taking his position. He raised $500,000 for President Barack Obama's 2008 campaign and helped finance his inaugural. He was, like a lot of them, because of his big money connections, given a patronage job, ambassador to Belgium. Apparently, he would regularly slip away from, the allegation is he would slip away from his security details to try to solicit sex from minor children. This guy is a pedophile, and they were supposed to investigate that, and Hillary's main underling staffers quashed those investigations. That's the latest scandal out today.
Have you heard about this?
There was up on Political earlier today, or a Drudge Report, excuse me, and did look at that article. So,
all right. Will Rogers is our guest. He's the head of the Polk County Republican Party. Tom Coates is here. I'm J. Michael McCoy. We're discussing the unlimited amount of incompetency that is coming out of our administration. And what I'd like to talk about when we come back is consequences to us, the American people, in the long term. It just seems unthinkable to me that some of these things are going on. But I look at everything through a biblical worldview. And if not a biblical worldview, then I look at it through a conservative worldview. But it seems that my liberal friends have quieted down an awful lot on the Kool-Aid drinking crowd that follows Barack Obama. And it doesn't even seem like the little gophers want to poke their heads out of the hole. They just kind of want to lay down there because they know they got 3 more years of entitlement and all that coming. But we'll talk about that when we come back. Tomorrow, Right Places will be here in my place on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday, Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, is going to host The View from a Pew. So I appreciate you taking your time to listen to this program, to podcast this program, and more than anything, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. Right here on 99.3 KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
And they say I can't sing. 11th day of June on the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy.
And they're right.
Tom Coates in the house today as my host. And, of course, Will Rogers, our special guest. I really appreciate it when you come in.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I like your I like the conversations we have with you. And I really like Richard Schneider. Is that his name?
Charles
Schneider.
Your rookie sender. We had him on last week. If you missed the show, listen to it on the podcast. I think he's Mac, I think you laid it out very, very correctly. He was a humble man. Mm-hmm. He was a wise man, didn't spout off a lot, didn't try to put the spotlight on himself.
Yeah.
And I like him. Plus, as Will is, he's a cigar smoker. Will is will give the proper revealing comment that Will and I are members of the same club, and we found out Charles Schneider likes cigars too.
Now, for total disclosure, Will Rogers has not had a cigar since January 5th.
What happened?
This year.
Well, you were in the club a couple times. What happened?
I'm passively smoking through Tom now, mind you, but
that was when you had a little medical thing.
I had my blood clot go to my heart, and subsequently, my good friend and cardiologist and fellow cigar smoker, we won't disclose his name, but he said, "Will, you should quit smoking," and so I trust his opinion on it. He's not one of these anti-smoking jihadists out there, which you encounter anywhere in the medical profession. I mean, they look at you like, they ask you, do you smoke? And if you say, well, an occasional cigar, they just look at you like you're a child molester.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really one of the things that I find like you're going to live 20 years longer. You know, I mean, you're going to live to be 120 or something. Yeah.
So have you given them up permanently or just for the time being?
I have not smoked a cigar and don't plan on smoking a cigar again, at least until I'm Jerry Grady's age. And Jerry Grady is at least, 110? So
he looks it, doesn't he?
So Jerry Grady is another fellow member of the Cigar Club. Jerry had suffered some heart trouble in the past as well, and he quit for a number of years. And his children, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. I at least want to see her, graduate high school, move on to then before I would do anything that would be against doctor's advice.
So quit trying to bring him into the dark side.
Well, but he
there's
comes
no
around
dark
there.
side to it.
But cigar smokers do not inhale as cigarette smokers do. You can pick a cigar up, you can lay it down, you can walk away for and you do not have the nicotine in your system that creates the dependency that the cigarette smokers. It's a totally different deal. And people that they hear tobacco, they think cigarettes, they think you're a chain cigar smoker, and there are no such thing as a chain cigar smoker these days.
Again, for me, it's more going to the cigar club and spending time with other people. Other men is typically we once in a while have a young lady up there. Or,
it's a rarity.
But we get to spend time with fellow people, men that may have difference of opinions on a number of subjects, but we all get along great. It's a great social group. And
but the secondhand smoke, that's got to be as bad as you.
No. I had the conversation. The gentleman said, "Look, if there's 40 people and they're smoking, probably not advisable, but." There's 10 people in there. They have smoke eaters, air filtration systems, things like that. So.
I just know the one time that I was there, I turned green because I'm not a cigar smoker. Yeah. And I was sitting with, who was I sitting with? You and, anyway, 3 or 4 guys. And I literally went, I'm going to, anyway. All right, let's move on to state and local politics.
All right.
If I ask you a question you can't answer, I respect that, okay? What the heck's going on with Ken Sorensen? Is this a big deal or not? No comment? It's okay if you don't want to make a comment.
There's an ongoing investigation there. I can sit here and speculate and offer hyperbole. I really don't know all the details of the situation. I do know that at the Iowa State House and the Iowa Senate, that there is an ethics violation to take payment from a political campaign or to profit by your office, essentially. And that's one of the ethics charges that has been filed against Senator Sorensen. I don't know. And then beyond that, there's the speculation of how he received payment. And was it legally disclosed as well by the Bachmann campaign? And then eventually, I think Ron Paul's campaign comes into play here as well. And because of Kent kind of jumping ship there at the last minute, he literally was at a Bachmann event in the morning and was all love and kisses, and then walked over to the Ron Paul event and walked in and got up on stage with Ron Paul and endorsed him. And so,
that was done for money as well.
And the question was that done for money as well? So, for your listeners that are following this, I mean, I don't want to condemn him, without knowing all the facts and without having the investigations
so
take their process.
The truth will come out.
The truth will come out. It's not that sophisticated. It couldn't be that sophisticated of a payment method that it won't show up in people's bank records. And if he's guilty, I mean, I personally think he should resign his office and move on and allow someone else to have the opportunity to occupy the seat.
When will he run again?
I believe he's up for re-election in 2016.
16, okay. So we was in the Senate race. Harkin, all the big dogs said no, right? I mean, Northey, Vilsack,
Latham Reynolds, Governor Branstad to an extent said no.
Branstad said no a long time ago.
Right. Steve King obviously was. Tom Latham were two of the top tier candidates I think people were looking to run. Kim Reynolds and Bill Northey were the second tier candidates I think people were expecting to run. And now we're down to another tier of candidates with lesser name recognition, perhaps lesser political, time in elected office positions of importance. But, Matt Whitaker, I think, is someone that, you say the big dogs. Matt Whitaker, I played against him in football in high school. I'm going to tell you, he's a big dog. Okay.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But Matt brings a lot to the table in terms of his time spent as U.S. attorney. I think he's a sharp, I think he's going to be very capable of getting out and getting on the stump and talking about issues. I think David Young, now, of course, he was on Simon a few weeks ago, and that was an issue with some people that he wasn't prepared. The fact is here's a man who's been working for Senator Grassley for a number of years in the area of policy. I mean, if there's anybody that is going to know policy issues and the intricacies of them better, it's David Young. That's so far, he may know more than
but he
Bruce
just kind
Braley.
of mumbled and
Did Simon do
through.
one of his patented ambushes on him?
No, actually, it was quite the opposite. I think, to be fair to Simon asked him a question, and David just was not capable of presenting a valid answer.
Okay.
And I don't, I can't remember the subject matter, but it was. Let's put it this way: it was less than a stellar performance on a friendly radio station.
I like Simon, but his tendency is to want to do ambushes on people.
He does, and yet at the same time, I do think he is fair. I mean, I don't want to beat him up.
At times, there was a mutual friend of mine and perhaps yours, Tamara Scott, that went on there during the casino debate and got literally ambushed. People that weren't supposed to be in the room were there, and it was truly an ambush, and it was. Right. I think there were other reasons behind it, but that one, and I've heard some others. I mean, he even ambushed our own governor once. So that I think is the one weak spot to Simon's show is a tendency to want to ambush people, and sometimes quite unfairly.
And then the big news here is Sam Clovis is decided to run for office, and Sam brings a background as an educator, a background in the military, a background as a radio host. And Sam has got a lot of respect by a loyal group of listeners up in Northwest Iowa. That's the primary way that people know him up in that area, but also he's considered a leader.
We'll talk about those possibilities and a few others, including Tom Coates' favorite, Steve Dace, when we come back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Okay, 10 before the top, Salem Radio Network news at 4 o'clock, and then at 4:03, it's True Blue, hosted by Pastor Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church. So we have the talk show host from Sioux City.
Correct.
Which, Tom, you said is well-spoken.
I understand. I have not heard him, but I was just talking to my counselors today who has heard him. He said he's very articulate, very conservative. He said when he saw him with some other people on the stage, everybody else kind of went to the background. He stepped up and kind of took command. And so he said he's somebody to be reckoned with, even though we don't know him.
You know, you can listen to his announcement speech. It's on the IowaRepublican.com website today. You can go on there and just get a little piece of Sam. You can also find his podcasts online as well.
You know him well?
I have met him before and have had a number of people, just about anybody that ever is running for office that travels through Northwest Iowa is going to go on Sam's radio show. So.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now, that brings up something that I continually bring up, and people just laugh at me. But I know Steve Dace, and I know that he has not shied away from the fact that at one point in his life, he's going to run for political office. If the radio talk show host in Sioux City gets in, why isn't Dace a viable candidate?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
All right. Now, I do think there's a good chance that either he or Bob Vanderplat's one will stick their toe in the water without another person of that ilk. I don't think you probably see one or the other. I don't think you'll see both. I think Bob Vanderplat's or Steve Dace probably gets in at some point. Now, neither one of them have a chance in the general election. And so that goes to the question of how smart is it to try to muddy the own water that you live in, just like Bob Vanderplat did when he ran for governor. And when he goes in and he demands that just like the two guys before him, Nussel and Doug Gross. He demands that Branstad put him on the ticket so that he can shore up his Christian conservative roots, and he says no. Then he goes to the convention, which should be a celebration of Terry Branstad running the party. He tries to spoil that party because he didn't get his way. And I think...
Hold on, stop. How did he try to spoil it? I don't know that story.
You don't know about him. Instead of, typically when a man wins the election, you step up and endorse him. And
Sure.
Instead, he tried to challenge him and take the endorsement away at the inauguration. A little bit like what Jonathan Narcisse did. You remember Jonathan Narcisse, the guy that went down in the hot air balloon with his wife, and then, a week later, he got his national publicity. But he told me he was going to go primary Chet Culver and dirty him up. And instead, he flipped around 180 and primaried and tried to dirty up Branstad, which, by the way, was the person sitting in the room that Branstad didn't know was going to be on the Simon Conway show, came in, and he had Jonathan Narcisse there to ambush our sitting governor. So do we really need Steve Deace or Bob Vander Plaats getting in and trying to spoil the barrel of our hopeful? I mean, we need to take back, if we can, the U.S. Senate, and that needs to... Part of that puzzle is put together by this vacated Harkin seat. And can we do it better without that kind of input to try to divide the party in the primary and then not come together in the general? See, I think that's what they will do, and that's my fear. And I think you may be right. Deace, is his show going well enough where he won't step out of it to run for the U.S. Senate seat?
Well, the only thing that would have to happen is his show would have to come off of WHO and come off of KTIA.
Well, but if you're running full speed for a U.S. Senate seat, you can't continue to do a daily talk show, can you?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't have any idea.
So how much would he have to lose by stepping out of that gig for a while and running full speed?
He'd lose everything.
Well, and he's not not going to win the general, even if he could coalesce the conservative element behind him. And if he were our candidate, we'd be sure to lose. Well, what do you think?
I think Steve Deace would be a difficult candidate to win the U.S. Senate on the Republican ticket. Steve has been very controversial within the Republican Party. I think the majority of Iowans, even though they might feel or think or believe the same things that he does, I don't think they do to the same degree. And I think that would cause people to be sheepish of voting for him and supporting him.
I must be just blinded by my friendship within them. And I'll accept that. Love is blind. I love that man. I've known him for 15, 16 years, and I just think he would make an exceptional senator.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. Can I say just one more thing to add to this conversation? Quite possibly, maybe one of the best candidates that will be that's not in the race yet will be, I think, entering the race here in the next few weeks, next month or so, and that is State Senator Joni Ernst.
Yeah, I've heard her name.
She is a state senator from southwest Iowa. I believe she has, I think, like 5 counties that she represents. She is in Mills County, Red Oak is her hometown. She was an elected official down there at the county level. When Kim Reynolds actually was named to the lieutenant governor position, Joni Ernst was the special nominee and won that election. And she's also a high-ranking officer in the Iowa National Guard. She has just a great story to tell.
How old is she?
I let's just say 39. But let's just say 39. She's probably in ballpark. She's probably north of 40, south of 60. So,
oh my.
So
those opinions of Will Rogers are not necessarily those of J. Michael McCoy, Tom Coates, or The View from a Pew.
That's
Talking
correct.
about a woman.
That's correct. But I think she looks like she's 39, folks.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Maybe even 35.
35 could be a good number
well,
as well.
I'm trying to get a handle on age, and I think the gender will help her.
But I think she has been up at the Iowa State House. She knows how to talk and discuss issues with constituents. She knows how to talk about issues out on the stump. She's just very bright, and I always hate to say this, we shouldn't be looking to her gender as an important factor, but I would love to see the first
I think there's an appetite for
or
that.
senator or congressperson from Iowa that would be elected as a woman be a Republican woman.
What do you think about if Steve Deace does and Bob Vander Plaats is candidate for the U.S. Senate? What would you say to that?
Bob Vander Plaats is candidate for the U.S. Senate.
He won't win.
I mean, look, I have on some things I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bob Vander Plaats. I at the same time, I think it would be very difficult for Bob to win.
You're talking about winning the primary or the general?
I think both, actually. I think the path to victory for Bob Vander Plaats right now would be, I think it would be more difficult for Steve Deace than it would be for Bob Vander Plaats. But it would still be a difficult path.
All right.
But would it divide the party?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate it. Stay away from that cigar smoke. We want you around a few more years. Tom, just smoke all you can. Smoke them if you got them, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. This show's been produced by Father Tattoo. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow right here on The View from a Pew. And until then, do just one thing for me, would you? Tonight, when you lay your head down, close your eyes, pray.